Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association 2023 Reasonable Doubt here with the most impeccable host, Justin Harris.
Host. Happy New Year, 2023.
Yo, and Wade Smith, big not guilty getter.
Hey, glad to be back on, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. I think today we'll go ahead and start with some big wins, talk about 2022, and then we'll go into some 2023. So, speaking of big wins, Wade Smith got one of the biggest wins of the year.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
So, media comes in, just completely skews the whole deal. Goes after your client. He's drugged to the mud. The case is drugged to the mud. The media is spinning left and right. And then Wade Smith comes in there and gets a not guilty.
Yeah, you know,
There's more to it. It's a tough case. It's a murder case involving the decedent was a police officer
with HPD. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on with that.
He was a 23-year veteran of the Houston Police Department. Been with the department a long time. You know, and a lot of the, you know, like JV was talking about the media. That was all. That was the big focus. Was this was a Houston police officer, and then my client was a young tattooed Hispanic guy from the north side.
What's the PC?
The probable cause?
Yeah.
I mean, so this was a road rage incident, basically. And
it was murder. It was not capital murder, right?
That's correct. It was just a straight...
So to make it would have been capital murder if the allegation was that he shot a police officer who was in the line of duty and identified himself as a police officer.
Was he in the line of duty?
No.
I'm trying to kind of set it up a little. It's a murder, not a capital murder.
Yeah, it was just a straight murder, but it was. I would say it was kind of tried like a capital because the deceased Sean Rios, his status as a police officer was basically front and center for the trial.
You say the word status.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Well, okay. So he was off duty. He was in his personal car. He was in plain clothes. And he was driving to a shift that he had that was supposed to start at like 2 p.m. At Bush Intercontinental Airport. He was working an airport assignment. So, you know, there was nothing, and nobody knew that he was a police officer. Not my client, not any of the witnesses. The first HPD units that responded to the shooting scene did not even know that he was a police officer for at least a half hour. Probably closer to 45 minutes. So
did that become an issue at trial?
Absolutely. It was always an issue. It was charged as a regular murder because him acting as a police officer, despite what was put out in the media. You know, Art Acevedo came out, I believe the day of, saying that Rios was intervening in another incident. And that was completely inaccurate. There was no evidence to support that at all. He was the incident. When I say his status as a police officer, we actually had a pretrial motion to have his occupation as a police officer excluded because it really had no bearing on what happened. It was our position from the very beginning that this was just an incident between two citizens.
Did the jury hear about him being a cop?
Absolutely, they did. Yeah, the judge said that was coming in, that it was declared that was a relevant fact.
Well, at some point in the trial, it comes out, the jury hears that he was screaming, "I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop," something like this?
That came from the prosecutor's mouth not from any witness.
Did you argue that in close?
And this was, before we jump to close, this was Judge Ana Martinez in the 179th.
Yes, this was in the 179th. And
So she ruled that the occupation of the decedent was relevant.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that was a pretrial ruling that we had.
Did y'all use that in any way in your defense strategy?
Well, so we basically, because it took a while to get that ruling, that motion was made very early on, and the ruling on that was kind of kicked down the road till it was closer to trial.
It's a limine. Wait till it presents its head.
So I think that's kind of what the state and the judge were kind of thinking of it more as, I think. But our position was that it was more of a, we were asking as a evidentiary ruling whether
Right.
that should come in.
A pretrial
exclude
ruling.
it.
Pretrial ruling.
I would couch it as a motion to exclude.
Yeah, that's basically what we did.
And then if the state opposes that, then you say, Judge, see, they want to say this. So then I asked them to make an offer of proof on how they plan to use his occupation.
Right, and
then the judge can go, okay, no, if that's what y'all want to do, not going to happen. That's an exclusion.
Yeah,
exclusion.
we had a hearing on that. And
Did the pleading include anything regarding him being a peace officer?
no, it was just a straight murder that our client shot him with a firearm.
That's just purely there to inflame the jury.
Yes.
It's just there to inflame the jury. What bearing does it have?
Absolutely. So in the pretrial hearing, it was asserted that the reason that they needed to say or show the jury that he was a police officer was to explain, one, why he had a gun, and two, why he was going to the airport. That's clearly not the purpose for which they brought that in.
There are a lot of people who are driving to the airport and have guns in their cars in Houston, Texas. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that.
Yeah. So that we had strategized how we were going to try the case either way on that ruling. And quite frankly, the fact that his occupation as a police officer came in kind of gave us more to work with in some ways. Not in every way,
So,
but in some ways.
well, okay. Well, what was the PC?
I mean, there was.
He wants you to tell him how it went down.
So that was the thing. As far as probable cause, from what law enforcement knew, they didn't really know what happened or what led to the shooting.
What they think happened, and what they think led to the shooting.
Well, so that's the
story.
deal.
Tell us the story, Wade.
The story, I mean, that's the story that Acevedo pitched.
What did he pitch?
He pitched that this officer was intervening in a road rage incident, and that's not what he was doing. He was part of the incident.
Right.
He followed. There was almost an accident between his car and my client, Robert. And Robert took the stand and testified about it.
I heard about that.
So we can talk about that in a minute.
We'll get there.
But there was almost an accident between their two cars. There was an exchanging of mouthing of words and gestures and whatever.
Between the plainclothes police officer
And Robert.
and
Yes.
Rob. All right.
So
What's this? Is it a street? Is it a overpass?
this is on I-45 North at 1:30 in the afternoon.
So they've fender bendered and
No. They didn't actually collide, but it was a close call thing. Anyway, Robert exits the freeway because he's on his way to his house, or not his house, to his to see his little girl at his girlfriend's house. So he gets followed. This off-duty officer then follows him off the freeway, and so he takes a quick turn down this side street there by the Cactus King nursery, and when he makes that kind of quick turn, the car behind him, the off-duty officer, makes that turn as well. So his testimony, he didn't want to get into a car chase, whatever. So he pulls over, gets out to be like, why? What's the deal, man? Why are you following me? Why are we?
yeah.
there was no accident. Like, why are we making a thing out of it? And initially, the officer doesn't get out of his car. And Robert goes to get back in his car, and then the officer, Rios, gets out, and he's got a gun in his hand.
Oh, snap.
So
Oh, snap.
Robert has a gun underneath the front seat of his car, and he grabs his gun and then runs around the front of his car, puts his car in between him and Rios. And Rios goes straight up to his car.
Whose car?
My
Up to
client's
your
car.
client's car.
Yeah. And the car's in between them, and there's an exchange of gunfire.
Oh, man. Who fires first?
I don't know.
Did they bring a ballistics expert?
They did bring a firearms expert. So Rios was firing a revolver, and I'll talk about that revolver here in a minute. We know he fired 3 shots. I don't know exactly at what point he fired all of his 3 shots because the shells stay in the gun. They don't fall out on the ground where...
He's a revolver.
Right. My client had fired 1 round at that initial exchange. And he doesn't know if he fired first or if Rios did. But at the time that he fired, Rios was already pointing his gun at him.
How did he dodge 3 bullets?
So the gun Rios was using was a snub-nose 38 revolver, right?
Little 38.
Little
38
small
special.
38.
Very accurate.
Right.
Little 38 special.
And with that really short barrel,
Stuff goes everywhere.
it's not real accurate at distance.
I've gone to shooting ranges and tried to shoot my 38. I'm not hitting anything. Nothing. I hit nothing.
That was the shotgun. That was the shotgun.
Well,
So
that's amazing. Okay, so
after the initial exchange of gunfire,
So your client shoots once, and the officer, Rios, shoots 3 times.
yes, during the entire exchange.
Sure.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. Okay.
So that first shot that my client fired actually went through the front windshield of his car,
of whose car?
his own car.
Oh, wow.
Because
While he was in the car, or is
no,
outside?
because he's outside. He had put the car
Between
in
them.
between them.
Wow.
And the first shot, he when he's pulling the gun up, pulls the trigger too fast, hits the windshield, it goes in and gets lodged in the car. As soon as he fires that shot, he takes off running into that plant nursery. Rios pursues him.
No.
Yes.
He's supposed to stop. Everything's supposed to stop. That's a warning shot. If it's an accident, it's whatever. No.
He pursues him to,
Just wait.
yeah.
Not you, Wade. Not you, Wade.
Oh.
I've heard the story. Just wait,
Okay.
JD.
So Rios then goes to this is an outdoor plant nursery. And there's one way in, one way out. And it's just a dirt driveway that goes in kind of to the back of it and stops. And, you get out and walk around, whatever. So Robert has run in there, and then Rios is standing at the entrance.
With the pistol in his hand.
Yep.
And he's firing a
Blocking
revolver.
his only way out.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
And the witnesses, so there was one witness who was parked along the side of the road. There's like a little driveway that like maybe 2 or 3 cars could park at. And he was parked there. He was sitting on a telephone call when he noticed that Rios had gotten out of his car. And that witness was the one who told us as soon as he got out of his car, he already had a gun in his hand.
Said that the off-duty officer
yeah.
had a gun in his hand.
And that witness described him as being red-faced, and his word was elevated. And at trial clarified that. What do you mean by elevated? Just like angry, agitated, right? And he's walking toward where my client is. And that demeanor and that gun concerned that witness enough that he started his car up and left.
How'd you find that witness?
So he had actually called in. He saw the news reports later on that evening about the shooting. So he called into HPD, and HPD, a detective that was assigned on the case, detective had called him and gotten a statement over the phone.
The state call that witness?
They did.
I mean, you would have obviously called the witness.
If they didn't, I would have. Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So.
What were they trying to do with that witness?
I mean, they were to neutralize Wade.
You know, I mean, how could you, if you're the state, how can you not call a witness from the scene?
Oh.
And then there were, you know.
Okay.
And then there's.
And then you're going to call them.
You were going to call them.
Yeah, if they hadn't, they called him in their case in chief.
So
but if
they
hadn't,
didn't have anything they needed to do. They just were trying to keep you from having like a Perry Mason moment.
What was the cross on that? What was the direct on that? Was your cross really a direct?
No, it was still a cross, but it wasn't aggressive. Didn't need to be, right? I had some specific facts that I wanted to establish.
What were they? The face, the gun, the body language?
The face, the gun, the fact that he didn't have anything else in his hands other than the gun.
God, just in broad daylight.
Yeah. This is 1:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Right? The fact that he didn't have anything else in his hand other than the gun, that he never yelled anything or said anything, and what he was wearing, right? That was pretty important because as far as that witness knew, it was just a guy.
Just a guy.
He was wearing dark-colored pants, which, come to find out, were like uniform pants, but they're just dark blue.
They're tactical pants,
Just
man.
black pants.
Yeah,
tactical pants.
You can go down to the 511 store and buy a pair right now.
Yeah, no. A lot of people like to wear them because that's their style, and that's scary.
Sure. So it was those pants, and then he was wearing like a white sort of print, not Hawaiian print, but like that kind of style shirt, you know, button up, short sleeve, collar, and it was white and had some kind of blue and green design on it. You know, so nothing that would indicate police officer. Nothing.
Wow. Light Hispanic, dark Hispanic?
Sergeant Rios was, yes, like a lighter Hispanic. Some of the witnesses even described him as being like a white guy.
Hair short?
Short hair.
How tall is the guy? 5'8", 6 foot, 5'4"?
I think he was, you know, he's about 6 foot and
Red-faced?
Red-faced and angry, yeah.
God,
so that's what I get from that first witness.
Talk about sensory details.
Sure. And then there's a little used car dealership on the other side of the street, and there's 6 more witnesses there who they don't initially. So that witness was the only one who saw anything before the shooting started. And so the first thing,
there's more shooting that happens because they're both alive.
Right. So everybody over at the dealership started, and as soon as he heard shots fired, he's gone.
Homeboy's calling in. I'm out. I'm gone.
He didn't call anybody initially
until he sees the news.
Until he sees the news later. So the other 6 witnesses over at the little used car dealership, they hear the first shot. Nobody really looks over till they hear the second one.
Oh.
And they were in quick succession, right? Bang, bang. They look, and everybody looks over, and the general consensus, everybody saw something a little bit different, you know, and eyewitness testimony is kind of weird, right? Some people were describing Rios as wearing khaki pants. It's just one of those things that when you're witnessing, you're coming in the middle of that, right? And we've, as attorneys, we've all read studies and things on eyewitness testimony and how sometimes it's unreliable, right?
Well, I mean,
with details.
Well, I'm sure the jury saw it with either through the ME's report or through some of the property that he obviously wasn't wearing khaki pants.
Right. You know, and some of them described a blue, like a light blue shirt.
Sure.
You know, it just depends. But the general consensus was that the first thing most of them saw was Robert running away from him into the nursery, and then him standing at the entrance, pointing his gun into the entrance and either shooting or trying to get a shot at whoever was in there.
And Rob is down there dipping behind the hibiscus, hoping he doesn't get shot.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Now, the weird thing that happens, and anybody that followed anything on the news, there was a person of interest, a guy in a black truck.
Neither of them had black trucks.
No, my guy was in like a light blue Mercedes.
Oh, so
like silver car.
So obviously your guy survives and takes off.
No, just
Yes,
wait.
at the end, yes.
Well, okay, because it's a person of interest now.
Well, so the person of interest was this guy in a black truck, who, in the middle of this shootout, Rios is at the entrance and Robert's inside. This black truck drives down this side street, and he stops, and he backs up, and he gets out of his truck, and he's said to be like motioning to these two guys. And then,
Where does this person of interest come from?
so it is pure coincidence. Now, obviously, the state tried to make something out of it, but that person ended up not testifying at the trial.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that person is there. Robert's inside. And while he's inside, his gun has jammed.
Oh,
Because
gosh.
you're familiar with guns, so 40 caliber, 9mm, very close in size. If you're not paying attention or you're not that familiar with guns, you can mess that up. He had a couple of 9mm rounds in a 40 caliber gun,
Yeah.
and they misfired, jammed
Yeah.
the gun. He had to get them ejected. Anyway, at some point, Rios leaves that entrance and goes back to Robert's car. Doesn't go back to his own car, goes back to Robert's car, and hides behind the front door.
Does he open the front? No, is the front door open?
It's already open.
He hides behind the front door?
Stands behind it, crouches down.
Get out.
No, I'm serious.
And does
Of your client's car. So that's
Of my
that's
client's
called, like, what do you call that in common law? Laying in wait?
Yeah.
Lying in wait?
to me that
Proper verbiage.
he's tactical style now. I mean,
That's
it's
malice of forethought.
well, it's time. Someone's gonna die.
So Robert finally makes his way and comes out of the entrance, and at that time,
He waits a while, right? And he's like, okay, I guess the crazy guy's gone.
no, not really. He doesn't wait that long. But he comes out, and they end up exchanging fire again.
Okay. Wait. You can't just say he walks out and they start a gunfight. Okay,
No.
so he walks out. How far does he go? How far is the car from where Robert walks out? How long?
It's probably-
What's the time for the first shot?
So the little standoff probably lasted a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. something
Where
like
he's
that.
where he's hiding behind
Where
the
he's
head
hiding behind the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, Rios leaves that entrance and goes behind the front door of Robert's car.
Posts up.
And within 10 or 15 seconds, Robert comes out
Okay.
and realizes Rios is behind his door.
Oh snap.
And they shoot at each other.
Okay, so he's out. Is he far outside the front?
He's like right at the edge of the driveway in the street.
Okay, and the car is parked by the street and to the entrance of the nursery.
Yeah, so as you drive down that street, he stops and pulls over like probably 50 feet before, 50, 70 feet before the actual entrance.
A mad dash from Rob's car to the nursery is 10 seconds.
Not even.
Mad dash, 6 seconds.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it wasn't that far, and, it's quick.
Wow. Okay, so
And so when they have that exchange, that's the second shot that Robert fires.
okay, but there's only 3 shots and 2 shots fired, right?
Right. In
Okay.
total, 5 shots fired, and then 2 misfires that are found in the nursery.
Are they misfires or are they
They were-
fired bullets?
So they were 9mm, but because they were in the 40 caliber gun, when the firing pin struck the primer, it didn't go off.
Got it.
So there was an indention, but not enough to make it go off.
How many in there?
2.
Wow.
And they find those like the next day or a couple days later.
Or were they planted?
Nah. No. No.
I'm just asking the questions.
No. Because one of the things that the state put front and center were some videos that Robert made, like Snapchat.
I heard about
Instagram
that.
videos that he made immediately afterward.
I heard of.
Because here's what happens. When they have that final exchange, Rios is hit with that one.
Rios is hit.
With that second.
Right. Oh, I knew.
Yeah.
I know Rios gets hit.
Yeah.
Right.
He gets hit with one bullet. It hits him in the chest.
Oh gosh.
And comes out, kind of right behind the shoulder. But Robert didn't know that. He knew he'd shot at him, but he didn't know that he actually hit him at that time. All he knew was that after they exchanged that gunfire, he sees Rios then turn and run back down toward the feeder road and then circle, hang a left and go behind some shrubs. We know that where he was going, he went into the lobby of that Taj Inn motel there on 45. And he went into the lobby there looking for help. Encounters a store clerk. The store clerk calls 911. Store clerk the manager of the motel, I keep saying store clerk, manager of the motel had no idea he was an officer. Still doesn't ID himself as an officer, right? And he ends up passing in the lobby, collapsing. But all Robert knows is that this guy that he's been in this shootout with just took off and ran back down and disappeared. He didn't know if he's coming back. He didn't know anything. So he gets in his car and he takes off. Well, him and the guy in the black truck, as it turns out, know each other.
Him and the guy, who's him?
Robert.
And the guy in the black truck.
And the guy in the black truck. As it turns out, they know each other, right? From school, and this is on the north side. It's a smaller, the bubble is small up there, right?
Yeah.
The neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a freak coincidence that the black truck was going by.
But the guy in the black truck didn't testify at trial.
He did not. And there's some reasons behind that, but we won't really get into it. Anyway, they're seen leaving, and the witness. Well, okay, so he.
Because I didn't care before, but now you said we can't get into it. Now I want to know.
It's not that we can't get into it. I just wasn't going to. But they're seen leaving, and the witnesses say it seems like they left together.
Okay.
And then the cops find some surveillance from some businesses further down the road, where my client ends up leaving his car at his girlfriend's father's transmission shop, which it just happens to be like a half mile or a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
He leaves his car there. The guy in the black truck follows him there and then ends up giving him a ride home.
You got to testify to that?
Yeah.
Were there any questions about who's the guy in the black truck?
Well, the state knew who he was. They had found him. It took a few months, but they figured out who he was, and it took a few months to actually get him.
Sure.
He had some warrants for like a DWI or something like that.
So he's fine. It's just a true random coincidence.
Right. But here's the thing. We had the benefit of a video that the state didn't have. We found that video day 4 or 5 into this whole thing. And it came from a barber shop that was on the other side of the highway. It was a high quality video if you're talking about the parking lot and the front door of that barber shop. It just was misaimed a little bit and happened to capture everything on the other side of the highway, but at that distance it was not the same quality, so it was, kind of blurry. But you could see cars, you could see the silver Mercedes that my client was in. You may not have been able to tell it was a Mercedes, but by witness testimony, we knew what was what, right? And we could tell who was who. You could definitely see that Rios was the bigger guy, the white shirt, dark pants. You couldn't see faces. You couldn't necessarily see what was in anybody's hands, but you could see motions. You know, you could see when somebody raised their arms up like this. We had that video, and the state didn't have it. And so we had not only our clients, on a week into this thing, we had our client's story, so we knew what he was telling us. And then we turn up this video, and it confirms everything. So we believed in this case from the very get-go. I did.
When was it filed?
When was it filed? They filed the case that day.
2018, 19?
Oh, it was
how did the
November
arrest go down?
November 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow.
November 9th, 2020 was the day of the incident.
Wow.
How did
Okay.
the arrest go down? There's a story
Well,
there,
yeah,
right?
well, we're
There's
getting
a-
there, we're
there's
getting
a- there's a
there.
story
We're getting
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're getting there. We're
So the
getting
guy in the black truck, once they identified him, they ended up getting him to come in and give a statement. They never arrested him. He gave a statement to police that actually supported everything, what had happened. And then he was subsequently called to the grand jury.
He testified in front of the grand jury?
And he testified in front of the grand jury.
Wow. What? I didn't know about this.
Yeah. And there were some inconsistencies between the two statements. So it made him not a great witness really for either side.
I don't know why it wouldn't be, other than it was unjustified. From the facts as presented, it seems pretty like, dude pulled out a pistol on him. He ran and tried to hide, fired a couple shots. It seems like a good self-defense.
It was. It absolutely was.
Well, what's the state's narrative? Because you had a I'm talking Carlos Correa, Muhammad Ali, Babe Ruth, Venus Williams prosecutor team.
They were good.
You had
They were
the
very good.
best people in the office. What's their narrative then? What's the piece? What were they?
Their narrative was, there were some extraneous videos that came in where my client had taken, the closest ones in time were from a couple of days before, but there were a couple from 6 months before, where he had done like a Snapchat or an Instagram selfie video of him driving and rapping along to the music on the radio and showing a gun in his lap with a stack of cash, basically, you know, doing kind of a amateur rap video kind of thing. There was also one where, you know, he's pointing the gun at his camera.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there were two others that had similar vibes. And their theory was that, and those were allowed, the jury was allowed to see those.
Were they limited in any way? And were there other social media texts or media that was limited out? Because I'm assuming these are coming from a phone dump.
It was coming from a phone
Did the
dump,
jury see the whole phone dump, or
No.
did they just?
No, there was a lot of, I mean, obviously in any given person's phone, there's gonna be a ton of stuff that's totally irrelevant to anything.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's a lot of stuff that stayed out. You know, but the jury was allowed to see those. The judge found those to be relevant to this case.
There weren't any text messages later that said, "I just blasted this fool."
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no.
That's amazing.
I mean, he made two different Instagram videos immediately after.
Oh, okay.
One was him filming the bullet hole in his windshield, you know, and showing that and kind of, you know.
That was later on because he moved the key. He took the car to his girlfriend's uncle's, girlfriend's dad.
Yeah, it was within minutes because that place is only about a mile away.
Okay.
So that was within minutes. And then on the ride home, that he was being given a ride home by the other guy.
Dude in the black truck.
Dude in the black truck. He makes a video in there, and he's actually shows the gun, and he's griping about the gun jamming, and it, that nearly costing him his life.
Yeah, because he almost died.
Right, right.
Wow. Okay.
And it's those two videos, and he's showing the bullet hole in the, he's pretty amped up, as anybody would be, right?
Sure.
And he's engaging in, he doesn't know anybody's been hurt. So he's just at that point glad he's out of it.
He's happy to be alive and
happy to be alive.
He doesn't know anybody gets hurt because
Rios took off running.
He takes off and he goes to the Taj Mahal.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah. So he's engaging in a little bit of kind of puffery. I dodging bullets out here, kind of stuff like that,
bro.
right?
That's a wild. It's too dangerous out there. It's just too dangerous out there.
If somebody honks at you on the highway,
just drive.
Just leave it alone.
Let me ask you, as a matter of a trial practice, did those come in as full audio, video files in front of the jury to see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you try to eliminate any hearsay out of that? Where there's
No, because those two videos that were taken immediately afterward, the phrasing and the vocabulary and that stuff is what you might expect from a kid from the north side, tatted up,
Sure.
a little bit gangster, whatever you want to call it, right? Uh-huh. But the substance of what he was saying was helpful for us, because the substance was, I was being shot at, I was having to dodge bullets, right? My gun jammed on me in a critical moment. It's a piece of crap because it almost cost me my life, right? That was the substance of what was in those.
Were there any?
At least that was what I argued to the jury.
Did the state try to introduce any sort of other extraneous photos or social media from the phone dump to show a plan, intent, motive, or opportunity?
That's what the four others that I was talking about were offered for.
When were those had, and how were they relevant?
There wasn't really there were no like.
They're there to inflame the jury.
Yes.
They're there to.
Yes, that would be my position. The judge was not. In that situation, the judge isn't necessarily required to tell you what their thought process is.
If it's probative, let the jury decide.
Right.
I mean, I hate that. I hate that.
You argue that it was unreasonably prejudicial and it was not relevant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the state said we need that part of our case.
Right. Because so going back to what you were asking, that their theory
and then the judge
was that
said, no, I'm letting it in.
Yeah. Well, because
videos made months before.
Yeah.
That don't threaten anybody.
So
that where
he's puffing around, he's puffing, he's puffing, he's north side,
messing with the camera like that,
Yeah.
But he's using a gun.
Right.
And
so
he decides that's relevant to this murder and a road rage incident.
Yes.
That's the course. Well, without understanding her thought process, because she doesn't have to share that with us. That's her ruling.
That was the ruling.
They could have thought you were going somewhere else and needed those because they thought you were. It was just a game of chess.
It could have been. I will say, I think with the investigation, which we criticized pretty heavily because of the conflict of interest that HPD had. They were investigating the death of one of their brothers. Mm-hmm. JV, how many brothers do you have, JV?
No, 5.
5, and like 4 of y'all.
5. It's 5 altogether. 5 if you include me. Right?
All right. If one of y'all is
include you.
If one of y'all is in a shootout and gets killed, should you be investigating the death of one of your brothers?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
But is the person that you find going to make it to trial, JV?
No. Nobody.
Me neither. So,
nobody's going to trial.
You're gonna be judge, jury, and executioner.
Nobody's going to trial. Hey, no, I don't even. No, I'm actually a lover, not a fighter. So, okay.
But so the state's their theory basically was that Rios observed Robert doing something like that on the freeway, and therefore had observed a crime because that he needed to intervene. That was
So he's intervening in some.
What? That was what
That
do you
was-
call that? Sort of with a T.
He's
The theory?
intervening on some crime. So then
Right.
what happens?
Yeah,
Right.
that was
That's
their
the
theory.
state's
Do they have
theory,
any
which is
evidence
why
whatsoever to support that.
their argument was that those 4 other extraneous videos supported that.
They're
But
saying,
they did not have one from the time period of that incident.
So they're saying Rob's is going around shooting people, capping people off on the freeway, on the expressways.
They're saying that he's going around waving a gun around and doing these filming while he's driving, and that must have been what Rios observed to cause him to follow Robert off the freeway.
It's almost like the DA's had to try this case. What are they going to nolly it?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, think about it. There were a number of officers killed in 2020 and in 2021. There was a whole string of them, and some of them very egregious.
First and foremost,
there was another Robert Soliz with a different last name spelling that was tried as a capital in the weeks prior to ours, and he fired his lawyers like during jury selection and went pro se and got convicted, of capital murder. A couple of weeks before we finished trying ours.
how long did the trial take? Start to finish, A to Z.
A to Z, we started on July 21st, and we got the verdict on November the 15th.
Oh!
But that included a little over 3.5 month recess.
I remember. I think I remember. I remember that. I was there just after your close, man. I was there at the start, something in the middle, and then I was there just after your close. And I'm telling you, when you walked into the courtroom, you commanded respect. You were extraordinarily professional. When I walked in on the close, it was just afterwards because I was looking through the windows and I didn't want to come in.
It was a packed house.
Packed. And I was like, man, there's nowhere to sit. What's going on? And I just want to say it was awesome. I didn't get to see all the trial, hearing some of the facts that have come through here. It's just awesome. And, 12 people said it.
Yeah.
12 people said it.
And I talked to the jurors afterwards. Not all of them, but, sometimes we get the opportunity to go back and talk to any jurors that want to hang around and talk to us. And frequently there are at least a few jurors who want to talk to the lawyers. And there were 5 or 6 that hung around, and I talked to them, and I asked them a couple of questions. I asked them how much did Rios's employment as a police officer play into their deliberations. And what they told me was not at all.
Okay. Was there or was there not testimony that indicated that Rob knew he was a police officer?
There was no testimony to that at all.
Any evidence that wasn't admitted in trial that led to that?
No.
Wow, that's
Well, there was testimony about that issue.
Well, there was testimony.
Every witness said
there were 7 different scene witnesses. All 7 of them said that they never saw anything in Rios's hand but a gun. They never saw him hold up any sort of badge or identification. There was no uniform or any sort of insignia that would have allowed them to believe that he was a police officer. He never yelled. They never heard him yell or call out that he was a police officer. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they all agreed, all 7 of them. Under cross-examination, when Robert took the stand, the prosecutor embarked on a line of questioning where she propounded some facts, not facts. She propounded a theory.
Some inferences?
Yeah, she said, and he showed you his identification. And basically forced Robert to deny all of those things.
Yeah. We do it. I do it.
Sure.
Hey, let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you had some
the problem was
amazing advocates on the other side.
There were. The problem was that those assertions that were made during her cross-examination of Robert, saying, and you were waving a gun around, and that's what Rios saw. No, that didn't happen. He showed you his identification card. He hollered, he yelled at you, police, free, all that. And she went through that litany of questioning, which Robert denied all of. And the biggest problem that she had with that line of questioning was there were 7 other witnesses who refuted the same things that she was saying.
Wow.
There were 7 other witnesses who agreed with what Robert said.
Oh, what was the pretrial offer? Or is that you can't say?
I don't even remember.
50? 100?
I think it was more than 50. I mean, but look, the reality is, you get convicted of killing a cop, that's a life sentence.
No, yes.
Capital murder, regular murder, it doesn't matter. If it's a cop and you're convicted, it's most likely a life sentence.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
Wow.
you're not gonna make parole.
Okay, let's talk about. Was he on bond or was he in custody?
So, at what point?
At any point. I don't.
So when what's up?
Nothing.
Well,
Okay, so during the trial, he was in custody. During the trial, he was in custody. And
bond was too high? Denied bond?
No, he had made bond. He made a very, very high bond, which was unexpected.
But
after
lawyer on the first bond or no? Were you right out the gate the lawyer on the? You handled the bond reduction?
Yeah. So we got hired before he was even arrested. Paul was actually on his way to help him to get turned in when HPD did a massive takedown and shut down the entire Katy freeway at rush hour.
Oh.
And pulled Paul out of his own car and our client out of the car at gunpoint.
The story just continues.
Yeah.
Paul Looney.
Paul Looney, my law partner. Yes, Paul Looney, my law partner. Who?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, wait, tell about the arrest. Like,
yeah, hey, we haven't even heard how it all kicks off.
He just told you.
The
shut
next
down the freeway.
Yeah.
That's
the next day.
Driving him to the police station.
What's actually to the DA's office.
And then what? And then what happened?
So Paul had been in contact with the DA. So Robert comes to us the very next day after this. Everybody knows that HPD is out looking for him. They've been kicking down doors all night long, right? Running down leads, whatever. Robert makes it to our office the next day. Paul gets in contact with the DA's office, lets them know he's with us. We will turn him in. Paul makes all the arrangements for that. Just give us some time to get what we need for our file, and then we'll bring him in. So Paul goes to take him in. Little do we know, HPD has set up on our office to the tune of like 20 plus cop cars.
Wow.
Both marked and unmarked, mostly unmarked. And they follow Paul, and within minutes of getting on the Katy freeway, they have unmarked cars box him in, slow him down, and all these marked and unmarked cars have blocked off all of the main lanes, including the HOV lanes, to the inbound side of the Katy freeway at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon, rush hour. and with, 20, 15, more than a dozen shotguns and tactical rifles.
Where were you at this time?
I had gone to meet with a family member.
Wow. And he goes to 49, San Jacinto, or processing?
Yeah, they take him down to JPC. But actually, no. They take him. They don't immediately take him to the JPC. They take him to HPD headquarters. To see if are we good?
Yeah, we're still on. We're cool.
Okay. They take him down to HPD headquarters to see if he'll give a statement. Which at that time,
His lawyer, right?
huh?
With his lawyer, right?
Oh no, Paul didn't get to go to that.
Tell about the handcuffing. Do you want to talk about that or not?
We can talk about that. It's quick. So they made it a point to release it to the media and write in their reports. There was a sergeant who kind of planned the majority of that, who testified at trial. He was given by another detective a pair of Rios's handcuffs. And so when they did the takedown on the highway and they cuffed Robert, they used a pair of Rios's handcuffs. So if you want to, if you talk about a conflicted agency,
that's
sure.
amazing.
And then when you look back on this,
yeah,
you realize what the police department did, and they were looking to scare, intimidate, possibly, if they felt like they had the need or the justification, hurt and kill somebody who, after all the evidence was heard in a legal way, maybe even a way that wasn't completely fair for your client, some could argue, they said, no, this guy was defending himself. The dead person was out of line, and the use of force was justified. He is not guilty.
12 people
and we have
said
this
that.
entire
12.
charade of 12. And we have this entire charade of one of the most well-respected attorneys. You're not talking about somebody who has a reputation for like running their clients to the airport or running their clients to the border, but he says we're on our way. And
you're talking about Paul.
Inconvenience the entire city of Houston, close down this road. They don't close it down because they're trying to like scare your client. They close it down because they expect shots to be fired, and they don't want to have to they don't want to be shooting through car windows like Officer Rios had done on a busy intersection or on a busy highway. So the conflicts here, the injustice that was done by just snap decisions, not correct investigation, and kudos to Paul and to you in your office, because what you have to do that in that situation. If you don't put your client in the back seat, because Paul put him in the back seat, and drive him yourself to the DA's office, then they're going to end up getting shot by the police in some kind of scary takedown when they're hiding in grandma's attic. I mean,
there's certainly the potential for that kind of thing to happen. I mean, one of the first things that Paul did was he contacted, after the arrest and everything, he contacted the DA's office, he contacted Art Acevedo, and he asked for an outside agency to be brought in, whether it was Texas Rangers or the sheriff's office, both well-respected homicide investigative agencies, right? And HPD wouldn't let it go. And the DA's office, they can make the request to HPD, but it's really HPD's call. And they wouldn't let it go.
Well, it's almost...
Did the DA's office make that request?
I believe so.
They're going to have to try that case. They're going to have to try that case all day.
Yeah.
They're going to have to try it all day. And
did the jury say anything about HPD's involvement in the investigation? Did y'all have any conversation about that?
No, we didn't really talk too much about that after the fact. When I said that they said that Rios's employment as a police officer didn't really play into their deliberations. They said because it was very clear to them that there was no evidence that anybody knew he was a police officer, so they didn't even really consider that. And that was something that we hammered. That was something that I hammered over and over with each and every witness, and with the law enforcement witnesses who testified. I went through each and every protocol for off-duty officers, on-duty officers, each and every one that he would if he had been an officer, he would have violated, right?
Mm.
And the violations of, we got testimony from 2 different law enforcement officers that someone who was violating that many policies from their general orders that they're all required to follow, whether they're on duty or off duty, someone violating that many policies simultaneously could not be considered to be acting as an officer at that time.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we
Wow.
have to wrap. I know, right? What an amazing story.
Great story.
At the end of the day, everybody be safe. And for the victims of crime, I'm sure he had a family.
Yeah,
He did.
it's a tragedy.
It is a
all the way
tragedy.
around. It's a tragedy.
At the same time, let us not forget all of those who are innocent, all of those who are oppressed, who are taken down by this system and used and abused and thrown aside.
Absolutely.
When we have advocates like us amongst this table and Wade, who stand and fight for the rights of these people, it is truly an honor and blessing to be in your presence.
I appreciate that. I love coming here with you guys.
Justin Harris, Wade, JV, Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, we out. Houston
Thanks, y'all.
Media Source, Houston Media Source.
2023.